Pakistan offers India an olive branch. Prime Minister Imran Khan says they'll release a captured Indian pilot as a gesture of peace. But will it work to de-escalate the crisis over Kashmir? I'm Imran Garza, and today's newsmaker is India-Pakistan tensions. This week has seen a dramatic escalation of tensions between two nuclear neighbors with a direct impact on the lives of 1.5 billion people. On Tuesday, India carried out retaliatory airstrikes on a Pakistani town, claiming to hit a Jaish-e-Mohammed training camp. That's the militant group behind a recent attack that killed dozens of Indian soldiers in Kashmir. The next morning, Pakistan hit back. It says it shot down 2 Indian aircraft and captured one of their pilots. Pakistan says it'll release him on Friday in an attempt to calm the situation. India did not immediately respond. Will the two countries take a step back from the brink of war, or is all-out conflict ready to erupt? In a moment, I'll pose these questions to a panel of players from all sides. But first, this report by Haider Abbasi.
This Indian fighter jet crashed in Kashmir. India's arch rival, Pakistan, says it shot down the aircraft. Now there's concern this could set the region on fire. Each side has a different story about what happened. Pakistan says the jet violated its airspace, which India denies. But there's no denying this: the capture of the jet's pilot by Pakistan's military. As tensions are rising, Pakistan's Prime Minister is urging diplomacy.
My question to the Indian government is, given the arms that we and you have, can we afford any miscalculation? Should we not be thinking that if this escalates, where will it lead to? It will neither be in my control nor in the control of Narendra Modi. That is why I once again invite you to talks. We're ready.
India hasn't replied to this offer, but Prime Minister Narendra Modi had this to say.
The world is looking at our collective will. We have confidence in the capability of our forces. That's why it's important to avoid anything which hurts the morale or our enemy gets a chance to raise a finger against us.
The origin of this crisis is as old as both nuclear-armed neighbors, the conflict in Kashmir. In mid-February, 42 Indian security personnel were killed in a suicide bombing in the town of Pulwama in India-administered Kashmir. Pakistan-based Jaish-e-Mohammed says it was behind the attack. New Delhi accuses Pakistan of supporting the group, which Islamabad denies. On Tuesday, India retaliated and carried out an airstrike on a town in northern Pakistan. It says it killed many Jaish-e-Mohammed militants in one of their training camps. But locals say the bombs landed in a forest and caused no casualties. Both India and Pakistan claim Muslim-majority Kashmir as their own. The countries fought 3 wars over the region, leading to Kashmir being divided by a ceasefire line known as the Line of Control. Most Kashmiris want to remain independent or merge with neighbouring Pakistan. India-administered Kashmir is the most militarized territory in the world, with about 500,000 Indian soldiers there. Most Kashmiris have taken up arms against Indian rule. India's military has been accused of numerous human rights violations, from rape and torture to extrajudicial killings. Rights groups say 2018 was the deadliest year in the conflict for a decade. At least 535 people were killed, including rebels, civilians and soldiers. So does the latest crisis between Pakistan and India have the potential to turn into another full-scale war? Haider Abbasi, The Newsmakers.
Let's bring in our panel now. I'm joined from Islamabad by Masood Akhtar. He's a former air marshal with Pakistan's armed forces. In New Delhi is Rahman Malik. He's a spokesman for India's ruling party, the BJP. And from the US state of Massachusetts, we have Mohammed Junaid. He's an anthropologist and the founder of the Kashmir Solidarity Network. Thanks for joining us, gentlemen. Rahman Malik, let me start with you. The fact that Pakistan is saying they will release the pilot Are you encouraged by that gesture?
See, I would take it as the situational call by Pakistan to comply with the Geneva Convention. And I would limit it to that only. I would not take it to any other space. Yes, had it been that Pakistan would have been coming forward and giving in the most wanted list that is there with them since the last 10 years, had they handed over those people, yes, I would have considered it a statement of gaining peace and clearing the animosity between the two countries. But I strongly believe that sending our wing commander back is under the Geneva Convention,
Okay.
and it is limited to that.
Okay. Masood Akhtar, that's what we're hearing from Rahman Malik. I mean, it's interesting that Pakistan hasn't, at the moment, asked for anything in return. They're saying this is a gesture of goodwill. From your perspective, Masood, is this a sign of weakness or strength?
I think neither. I think it's a good thing. The Indians made a point when they attacked so-called supposed terrorist camp, killed 300 people. We have made our point that, well, we can respond with a similar capacity and intent. I think it is good that the international powers intervened and peace is returning. So far as this wing commander is concerned, he's not a prisoner of war. There is no war declared between the two countries. But I think it's a good omen, and that the wing commander is going back. About the rest of the modalities, I think the two nations must sit together. They've given a dossier. Imran Khan has said, we will study this. Hopefully, if it is actionable intelligence, knowing Imran Khan, the person that he is, I think he will take action.
Mohammed Junaid, as the situation has evolved, has it become more about India versus Pakistan and less about Kashmir and the Kashmiri people?
I fear so. I think that it is a good sign that the tensions are slowly de-escalating. It's a good gesture on the part of Pakistan to promise the return of the wing commander. But I think that in all of this, what is being ignored is the situation in Kashmir. I mean, Kashmir is at the root of what has happened. You know, for the last 3 years since 2016, Prime Minister Modi has given a free hand to the military to deal with protesters, to deal with Kashmiri people who are out on the streets demanding military to withdraw from civilian areas. There is a crackdown on Kashmir going on right now where hundreds of activists and civilians have been arrested. I think that war is terrible. War is bad for Kashmir. But what we need to do is to go beyond the current situation. We need to address the root problem here. Majority of Kashmiris peaceful resolution of Kashmir dispute. You know, they want peace, but not at the cost of Kashmiri lives.
And in a nutshell, Mohammed, what's the root problem?
The root problem is that it has been since 30 years since the military arrived in Kashmir and occupied civilian spaces. There's a Armed Forces Special Powers Act there, which allows military to do as what they please. There's not a single case where military has been, questioned about their human rights violations in Kashmir. Everyday life in Kashmir is a hell. I mean, people in South Kashmir, I did my research in South Kashmir. I grew up there, and I know firsthand what the life is there. And the young man who blew up, sadly, unfortunately, blew up the Indian military truck that was carrying soldiers. We have to understand what led him to that. What did lead him to take up an extremist ideology?
Rahman Malik, you think Pakistan led him to do that?
I strongly believe in two things. That these people who sit down and say they have researched and they've talked about and they've done their studies, generally miss out to say that 30 years back, the first bomb blast that happened probably in 1987 in a sweet shop was the first act of war which was done by so-called non-state actors from Pakistan, who are given patronage by the deep state. That is number one. Number two, our friends never do talk about the ethnic cleansing and the genocide of Kashmiri Pandits that these hooligans did in the entire space of 1990s. And they forced a migration of these Pandits from Kashmir Valley onto various other parts of the nation. Imagine this, that these people are living like refugees in their own state of Jammu and Kashmir. So that also shows these people who sit down today far away from Kashmir, enjoying life like anything, and they have the poor Kashmiris fighting
Okay,
on
so
their
let's get
behest.
Mohammed Junaid
And
to respond to
these
that.
guys
Okay.
are doing it because they do not have development
Okay,
there.
we heard your point. Okay, Mohammed Junaid.
It's very unfortunate that Mr. Malik, who doesn't, of course, know me, I've spent most of my life in Kashmir. Okay, and I consider the tragedy of Hindus, Kashmiri Hindus moving out of Kashmir. And I think that they were forced under, they feared for their lives. But alongside the migration of Kashmiri Pandits, there are hundreds of thousands of others who have suffered a similar fate since 1947. And this is part of a larger issue. It's not, you cannot return to one single issue all the time to talk about, and because then we get into the circle of revenge. I think what we need to do is that we have to accept that majority of Kashmiris want Kashmiri Pandits back. And they have, even the Hurriyat leaders have extended solidarity, extended hospitality, and asked them to return. The question is, what happens when the Indian military continuously remains in civilian spaces and continues to have a free hand given by the Prime Minister of one of the largest democracies in the world?
Okay, Rahman Malik, I'm going to give you a chance in just a moment, but I want to bring in Masood Akhtar and kind of bring it back to the tension on the ground right now and stop looking at the root causes or the contested root causes at the moment. Masood, where is this going to end? How many more red lines need to be crossed before we can start to call this a full-blown war between India and Pakistan? And what would that mean?
Hopefully the thing is resolved as of now. But where is the problem? This must go back to some bit of root causes. I'll quickly cover this. This BJP government is extreme right of center, and they are absolutely wanting to do away, number one, with Article 370. They want to do away with Article 35. They want to use this draconian law and use excessive force against innocent people. The RDX was Indian, the truck was Indian, the gentleman, the boy who blew himself up was an indigenous, the native Kashmiri, and of course an Indian citizen. Yes, there may have been some bit of interference earlier on, but today the movement is entirely indigenous. This has happened, and I think BJP will, as long as they continue to do these things, the tragedies will continue to take place, the red lines will continue to be crossed, and there will be times when the incident, whatever happens, is because of the causes which are deeply rooted in Indian attitude and this, especially this government.
Okay.
So unless and until that happens, for the time being, thank goodness, sanity has prevailed. I think problems will crop up again, but hopefully this government is going to lose the elections and things should return to normal.
Okay, so Rahman Malik, we hear from Masood Akhtar that he claims there's an appetite for suppression of the Kashmiris. There's an appetite for war with Pakistan. Doesn't he have a point when we look at Indian media in the past few days as well? There's an upsurge in nationalism and jingoism, and there seems to be a great hunger for war. Bollywood producers are registering all sorts of names, Abhinandan, Pulwama, Balakot, right? They seem to be very happy at the prospect that they're going to finally give Pakistan their comeuppance. The man has a point that something in the atmosphere, there's something in the water which makes this BJP-led government very excited about the prospect of pummeling Pakistan, right?
See, though it is an internal matter of what our governments do and what our stand is vis-a-vis whatever the Air Marshal was saying, I would only limit it to this, that it was thanks to Nehru that you got a Pakistan. It was not anything else.
But why are we talking about 1947? I'm talking about newscasts from today.
No. This is very important. This is very important.
Nehru's dead.
I have a simple
we
thing.
have Modi today.
I have
Modi
no.
seems
We
to
have
be,
Nehru's legacy behind. So let's come
he
down
seems
to
to
the
be
basic
hungering
issue.
for conflict.
The
So
basic.
if you could address that, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely.
This was the same Prime Minister who called today when you are talking about it. You must not forget this is the same Prime Minister who invited the Pakistan Prime Minister on his swearing in. This is the same Prime Minister who does a diplomatic wonder by just stopping over into Pakistan to meet Nawaz Sharif in his family function and extend gratitude and expend warm wishes. This is the same Prime Minister who was talking about development of Kashmir. This is the same Prime Minister who also spoke about in Kerala. He spoke about let's join together, India and Pakistan civilians, fight against poverty, fight against illiteracy, fight against unhygienic condition, poor health conditions, good hospital development.
And this is also the same Prime Minister who's failed to respond to the news that the pilot will be returned, right? This is also the same Prime Minister who has failed to respond to Imran Khan's call. He tried to call him, he didn't pick up the phone. So that's all well and good.
Absolutely.
But looking at the situation now, Rahman.
Talks and terror do not go along.
Okay,
Sorry.
let me ask you.
Talks and terror will never go along.
Would you like war?
The only thing, if Pakistan wants peace, if Pakistan wants peace, it is a simple doctrine. You hand over the terrorists, dismantle the terror establishments there, and yes, we will help you to develop a beautiful Pakistan.
As things stand, Rahman Malik, do you want war?
We will not tolerate terrorism.
Do you want war?
And that is the bottom line. We want eradication of terrorism.
Do you want war?
They want to come forward. If it is going to be forced on us, we will. But we want peace only if the terrorism is finished from Pakistan and Pakistan stops the factory of terrorism which it has in its land.
If it becomes nuclear war, are you okay with that?
To maintain the sovereignty of India, to maintain its pride, we will see when the bridge comes. But yes, we will not accept terrorism. We are there for people of Pakistan, for their development. My family came after partition to India. I was from, my ancestors hailed from Mithativara. I believe the Air Marshal would know the place. And believe me, we are there for development of Pakistan. We are there for that they have a wonderful future. But we are not going to accept terrorism at any cost, under any pretext.
Let me ask Mohammed
So
Junaid.
if Imran Khan has good,
let me ask Mohammed
Junaid. He has
Junaid.
good intention, let him clear it.
Okay, Mohammed Junaid, as a Kashmiri listening to this, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I think sometimes, when Indian and Pakistani experts talk about international relations, state relations, they live in their own little bubbles. The important thing to realize is that terrorism, of course, Kashmiris do not like terrorism. I mean, it's bad for the entire region. Like, they are the ones who are facing the brunt of the military action in Kashmir on a regular basis. Kashmiris want peace. And but Mr. Malik has to realize that it is when you don't allow people free expression, when you arrest peaceful activists, civilian activists, of course, some people will take up extremist ideology. I mean, blaming everything on Pakistan, yes, in the 90s, Pakistan did support, militant groups in Kashmir to some extent. But since 9/11, I think Pakistan has withdrawn complete support.
No,
and,
it has not.
Pakistan often says we morally and diplomatically support Kashmir, but I don't think it has gone beyond that. All of what is happening in Kashmir now is an indigenous movement.
The NIA, National Investigation Authority of India, has actually busted Hawala systems which were getting in money to these separatists. Also, of late, if you remember, the other day we were speaking and Mirwais was there. The same Mirwais, when the raids happened at his place after that interview, there were equipments found which were creating a hotline between him and the Pakistani handlers.
Not necessarily.
So now,
they found a satellite
when
at
you say
his
that they
home.
are not being supported.
Sir, Mr. Malik, I read about this. He could have been using it for Netflix, right? So it doesn't mean because they found a satellite, it was communications
Absolutely,
between him and
absolutely.
his handlers. Let me
No,
bring in
true.
Masood Akhtar.
Sir,
I want to address
Sir,
the point
we
you
have
made,
seen
Rahman.
too much of stuff.
Okay, I want to address the point you made. They found a satellite at the man's place. Let me bring in Masood Akhtar. Masood Akhtar, to some extent, does Pakistan need to do some sort of reckoning here? That it can't have it all its own way. It can't say we condemn terrorism but turn a blind eye to the fact that groups like Jaish-e-Mohammed operate on Pakistani soil. At the very least, even if Pakistan's not supporting them, they're operating, they know where they are, and they're doing nothing about it. Isn't that a fair criticism of Pakistani policy?
I am a very moderate, flexible Muslim from Pakistan. When Musharraf said Masood Azhar attacked him twice, Musharraf went very wrong when he was the army chief, he was the president, he should have taken care of this problem. Notwithstanding this, when India gives us evidence, it gives us statements that can be made from anywhere. And we have a constitution, we have a democracy, we have our courts, and when that evidence is presented in the courts, yes, there are a few things that we do need to take care of. But where is the problem? This BJP government working on a three-point doctrine, Hindutva, Hindu religion number one. I really have sympathies for Mr. Malik when he lives as a Muslim in a BJP extreme right of center, chest thumping chauvinist regime. Number two, so Hindutva number one. Number two
Hindu,
is
sir.
Ram Mandir.
I
They
am
want
proud
to build that
Hindu.
in Ayodhya. Number three.
Okay, there's a clarification.
Okay, fair
there.
enough,
He
fair
says he's a
enough.
Hindu,
I
but anyway,
have
please go.
all the respect for you.
Okay, go ahead.
All the respect for you. And last of all, the same family laws for everyone, including especially for Muslims. Remember, the last BJP government lost its majority, and they found they cannot continue to practice. This government wants to not only do that in India, this government wants to suppress the Kashmiris in occupied Kashmir.
Okay.
As
Can you
long as
answer
they
me, sir?
continue to do that,
Do you
I
have-
think Pakistan
Is it
India
okay
relations
under your
will
laws
not
to have a
improve.
triple talaq? Instant triple talaq, is it allowed in your country?
Oh, come on. Now why are we talking about
man can
divorce?
just go-
I think,
Hold on, why are we
I
talking
think,
about
I
divorce?
think, look,
I mean, we're talking about nuclear war on the one hand and
Why I'm saying this
and
is
divorce on the
because
other.
human rights have
Yes.
to be equal for everybody.
Which is being peddled by the Indian media on 9 o'clock every night. And it is that's what is leading India into this
absolutely,
strategy.
yeah.
Like it looks like that the Indian policy, security policy,
Come and kill all
Hold on.
pundits.
Rahman, give Mohammed a chance. Let's get Mohammed
Anybody
to
who
make his
talks
point,
about
and then Rahman.
unify
Rahman, you can
India,
respond to both of them.
Even
So-
Mr. Lone was killed by this.
Okay, hold on. Mohammed, make your point, and then Rahman can respond. Go ahead, Mohammed.
Since 2004, there are three main actors that are designing Indian policy vis-a-vis Kashmir. It's, of course, Mr. Modi. Then there is generals, top generals in Indian military. I don't believe all generals in Indian military are irrational, but some of the top leadership have made irresponsible statements about what India can do vis-a-vis Pakistan and Kashmir. And most importantly, it's the Indian media. Not all media. There is responsible media, but there is the vocal section of Indian media who are continuously heckling.
Anybody who talks as per what you want is not rational.
And they are leading India into this strategic trap where India is unable to get out. You know, you could start stuff in Kashmir, like ease pressure from Kashmiris. Stop arresting people for trumped up charges.
Rahman,
Take pressure from young kids.
First of all, he should understand that Kashmir was given over by Maharaja Hari Singh as per the same documents
but
with the other three.
we're going back to
560 odd
1947 again,
states.
right? Okay,
No.
so Rahman,
So
the
the
man's talking
problem
about
lies there.
kids being blinded on the streets in protests, and we're talking about 1947 again.
So if you send your kids, if you're not careful about your kids when there is problem outside, they are throwing stones at the army to protect
Stop
terrorists. That is
Saying,
a
I
calamity which is going to come.
This day and
But,
age, you are
but
peddling
this is the
stereotypes
same
on-
government which is
on-
given a big medical institute into Kashmir. This is the same government which is given all infrastructures coming, at a massive pace. You are talking about infrastructure, railways. You're talking about good internet, you're talking about good telecommunications, you're talking about hospital engineering institutes, IITs coming over.
Okay, so why are they all on the
else do you
streets
want
then,
the
Raman?
Indian
Normal
Indians
for
to do?
every decent country.
Why are they on the streets, Raman? If everything's perfect for them, why are they on the streets?
The only
Absolutely.
reason why
Why,
they are
why,
on
why?
the streets is because these people do not want them to grow out of it. Otherwise, the whole relevance of the Hurriyat and the extremists and the pro-Pakistani fraternity is going to go out.
Okay.
And once that goes out, they are irrelevant.
Okay, got it. So you believe they're being directed by others. Masood Akhtar, I want to draw on your experience here. And I don't mean to sound ageist, but you're the person on the panel with the greatest amount of gray hairs. You would have, I guess, a clearer memory of Kargil in '99 and previous conflicts as well. You would have seen the flare-ups over the years, and you would have been within the armed forces over the years, over the flare-ups. How does this one compare to the past? Is it worse, or do you have hope that this will be resolved soon?
Very dangerous, very dangerous.
Why?
Very dangerous. Pakistan must make all the efforts, India must make all the efforts. Like Imran Khan said, here is a war that can escalate into anything. God forbid. Even if it doesn't go nuclear, I think India will be retarded by, let's say, 10, 20 years. We will be retarded by more. We have a weaker economy. We fully realize that. The two nations must sit together. This war is going to be nowhere resembling 65 or 71 or Kargil. This is going to be devastating for both the nations, for the region and for the world. And all policies will go out of the window so far as the Americans are concerned, the Russians are concerned, the Chinese are concerned, and the entire world will be in turmoil for a long time. So both must take heed, they must step back, both must take 2, 3, 4, 5 steps back, think rationally. I only hope this BJP government, which is, I have labeled it extreme right, chest thumping, chauvinist, jingoistic government, I hope they will also think, and I only hope if they don't think rationally, another government will come. The omens are right. They have lost the last elections. I hope they will. And we have a change. Even Atal Bihari Vajpayee, who formed the last government, he did extremely well. He did extremely well.
You are putting atrocities on all the northwest frontier.
Unfortunate.
The Pakhtuns, you are putting atrocity on the
Baloch. What are you
doing?
Listen.
And your journals are only limited in controlling the Punjab.
These are restless and
We
dangerous
don't have
times.
to fight on this channel.
Raman,
We don't have to
Masood,
fight on this channel.
And Mohammed, listen, gentlemen, I have to wrap and I have to move on, but these are restless, dangerous times for India and Pakistan and the people living in Kashmir as well.
Very dangerous.
Hope to
Very
have you
dangerous.
all on the program again sometime soon. Thanks for joining us on the Newsmakers. Still to come, a nuclear no deal. US President Donald Trump and North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un failed to reach an agreement in Vietnam. We'll ask what went wrong. It was meant to cause North Korea to give up its nuclear weapons, but instead, the second summit between Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un ended with no deal. Why? Well, the US president says the talks failed over North Korea's demands to lift all sanctions. But Trump added Kim promised not to conduct any more nuclear or ballistic missile tests. As both sides walk away, have hopes for a breakthrough finally come to an end. Natalie Pohonen has more.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un described his first meeting with US President Donald Trump as a scene from a fantasy movie. They've now finished filming the sequel in Hanoi, but the script didn't go as planned. Day 2 of the denuclearization talks appeared to be getting off to a promising start.
Well,
it's too early to tell. But I wouldn't say that I'm pessimistic. But from what I feel right now, I do have a feeling that good results would come out.
One of the world's most secretive leaders and one of the most public were reaffirming their friendship for all the world to see. The president described Kim as quite a guy.
Chairman Kim, are you ready to denuclearize?
김 위원장님 기획할 준비되셨습니다.
지금 의지가 없다면 여기 오지 않았을 겁니다.
If I'm not willing to do that, I won't be here right now.
That's a good answer. Wow, that might be the best answer you've ever heard.
But within hours of that exchange, the summit was cut short. There was no deal to sign off on. Trump was the lead US negotiator in Vietnam. He says Kim had agreed in principle to dismantle North Korea's Yongbyon nuclear facility.
Basically, they wanted the sanctions lifted in their entirety, and we couldn't do that. They were willing to denuke a large portion of the areas that we wanted, but we couldn't give up all of the sanctions for that. So we continue to work, and we'll see, but we had to walk away from that particular suggestion.
The man who wrote The Art of the Deal couldn't strike one, but says he has a concession from Pyongyang.
One of the things, importantly, that Chairman Kim promised me last night is regardless, he's not going to do testing of rockets and nuclear. Not going to do testing. So, I trust him and I take him at his word.
But North Korea had already agreed to stop nuclear tests before last year's summit. On the surface, these talks are a diplomatic failure, with no concrete outcome and both sides clearly at an impasse. North Korea didn't immediately make any statement about what steps it will now take. Trump says Kim walked away from the table in a friendly spirit, but there is no word on when they might meet again. The health of that friendship and the future of these denuclearization talks now appear to be in question after Kim's decision to abruptly leave with no diplomatic roadmap in sight. Natalie Pohanen, The Newsmakers.
Well, to discuss this now, I'm joined from Augusta, Georgia by Han Park. He's the founding director of the Center for the Study of Global Issues. In Medford, Massachusetts, we're joined by Sung-Yoon Lee, a Korean Studies professor at Tufts University. And in Washington, D.C., we have Bruce Klingner, who's a senior research fellow in Korean and Japanese affairs at the Heritage Foundation. Gentlemen, good to have you back on the Newsmakers. Sung-Yoon Lee, let me start with you, Professor Lee. Is that hope cycle now over and everybody's going to lower their expectations?
I don't think so. We have seen Donald Trump, uncharacteristically for an American president, play hard to get vis-a-vis North Korea. It was last May 24th, when unexpectedly President Trump wrote a discourteous letter to Kim Jong-un calling off the scheduled first ever summit between the leaders of the two nations in Singapore. But the very next day, President Trump said, well, if it happens, it will be on the same date in Singapore. And a few days later, he confirmed that he would go ahead and hold a summit meeting. So I don't think this is a change in the status quo. I'm pretty sure Kim Jong-un was set aback. He was taken aback, quite surprised by this. And I think he pushed a bit too hard. Kim was trying to sell the same horse three times now, the Yongbyon nuclear reactor. And according to President Trump, asked for sanctions relief in their entirety, full sanctions relief. Even President Trump, who is moved by an impulse to make history, I don't think that was an acceptable proposition to Donald Trump.
Han Park, was Trump right to walk away when Kim Jong-un said, we want all sanctions lifted?
I think what Trump did was a tactical maneuvering. I don't think he's disinterested in denuclearization or in Kim Jong-un. I think the talks at some level, if not the highest level, will continue. Yeah. What North Korea wants is not really complete removal of all sanctions, but it wants its peace treaty. Without peace treaty, it will never honestly relinquish its nuclear ambition. So still a long way to go, but there are low-hanging fruits that they have to work at, and that is the exchange of liaison offices and U.S. military training jointly with South Korea, and there is also a number of different smaller things they can achieve. So I think the approach top-down was not very effective.
Bruce, why go through all the effort of going to Hanoi and conducting these talks, having the big press conference, and then walking away? Or was that designed from the very beginning?
I don't think it was part of a grand plan ahead of time. I would have preferred having things discussed at the envoy level so that it didn't appear to have a major collapse. I think this kind of differences between the U.S. and North Korea would have been better found out, behind the scenes rather than in front of the curtain at such a high level. But I think President Trump did the right thing. I think when North Korea refused to move beyond Yongbyon only, which the one area I disagree with Professor Lee is that this is the 5th time it's been promised, and then seeking too much on a sanctions relief, I think the president did the right thing. I've been very critical of his policy on North Korea, but today I think was a good day.
At the heart of all of this, Sung-Young Lee, Yongbyon, 400 buildings allegedly peppered over almost 4 square miles. They produce their nuclear weapons there. Is it ever possible that the North Koreans would even think about dismantling it?
Well, they did freeze it between 1994 and 2003, and then again between 2005 and 2008. So the facility has been frozen, temporarily shut down in the past, and it's an old facility. I mean, it would be, I guess, one step forward to shut it down once more. But when North Korea has uranium enrichment facilities, forging ahead, churning out uranium at full speed in several undisclosed locations, one step forward should be judged by 2 steps backward, and that outside the strange sphere of nuclear diplomacy vis-a-vis the DPRK, where every attempt, every effort is rewarded with a participation award, that would be considered lack of progress or even failure in other realities.
Han Park, who makes the next move now?
And I think it has to be the United States. North Korea, they clearly know what they want. They will never relinquish their nuclear weapons without peace treaty. That's the bottom line. America is not prepared to even discuss about peace treaty and maybe some other things. I think we should expect the administration in Washington to work on lower hanging fruits and that can be accomplished, and then move up. The complete denuclearization, we should expect that should come at the end rather than in the beginning.
Bruce, okay, let's get a response from Bruce. Sorry to interrupt you. So Bruce, give them the peace treaty first and then they'll dismantle the nukes.
Well, I think the lower branches have all been picked pretty clean. I think right now the ball really is in North Korea's court. It's North Korea, not the U.S. or South Korea or Japan, that's in defiance of 11 UN resolutions. So I think everyone was taken aback by today's events. And North Korea, as Professor Lee said, I think thought they could get another U.S. president to pay for the same horse again, with being Yongbyon only. So I think we cannot remove sanctions or reduce sanctions until the triggering activity has been eliminated or reduced. So I think right now it's up to North Korea to show that they're willing to move beyond a Yongbyon only deal. I disagree on a peace declaration. I see it as a meaningless gesture that certainly North and South Korea are pushing for. But as South Korean officials have emphasized, it's a political issue of document. It's a diplomatic document that will have no impact on the real world. And there are a lot of inherent risks in it. It further undermines international resolve to enforce required sanctions. And it also could be a slippery slope on the security side of calling for premature removal or reduction of U.S. forces. A peace declaration should be avoided. We should work towards a peace treaty as we were doing in the 6-party talks. But it has to include conventional force reductions to remove or reduce the North Korean threat to South Korea.
And shifting gears a little bit from diabolical weapons of mass destruction to diabolical actions and treatment of human beings, I want to ask you, Sung-Young Lee, about what you think of how Trump responded to the questions about Otto Warmbier's death, because I guess it might be revealing as to his view of human rights and pushing the North Koreans on human rights. So he says he trusts Kim Jong-un, that he didn't know anything about it. Kim Jong-un didn't know that the guy was tortured and killed and so on. What does that say about Trump, this administration, and how far or high up the agenda the human rights of North Koreans and other people are when it comes to striking a deal?
So President Trump, we all heard, say that he believes Kim Jong-un, who purportedly told Trump that he feels bad about the death of Otto Warmbier, didn't know about it. Well, President Trump also has said he trusts Putin, he trusts the Saudi Crown Prince, he trusts others. Kim Jong-il, in 2002, when the Japanese Prime Minister was visiting him on September 17, 2002 in Pyongyang, told the Japanese Prime Minister that, oh yes, there have been some rogue elements who abducted Japanese nationals in the past, but I didn't know about it. Earlier in history, in 1973, the prominent dissident Kim Dae-jung was gagged, blindfolded, was about to be dumped into the sea by the Korean CIA, the South Korean CIA. Purportedly, Park Chung-hee, the president, didn't know about it. So, I mean, it's not credible. And the fact that President Trump used the word, it's rough there in the prison camps. Right. Again, after Singapore, when he said, when asked the question about human rights, it's rough, you know, it's really rough over there in North Korea, but it's rough everywhere. It shows you that human rights is not a priority for the administration.
Han Park, is that a mistake? Yeah, you have an opportunity. You have an audience with Kim Jong-un. Call him out. Say, you need to close the gulags. You need to stop doing this to people. Why not? If the US president can't do it now, who can?
Even if Kim Jong-un was told by anyone, including American president, he will not be able to implement all these things, because who is in power in North Korea? Collectively, the Korean Labor Party, the Communist Party, is in firm control. Even Kim Jong-un does not make all small concrete decisions. So that it's not really the facilities at Yongbyon or nuclear bombs, how many there are and so forth. Destruction of these will not matter as long as there is a mutual hostility, mutual distrust. The level of distrust on the part of America and Americans on North Korea is extremely high. We have succeeded in demonizing North Korea some decades. It has to work toward de-demonization, otherwise things will not work very...
But Professor Park, I mean, yes, North Korea has been demonized, a lot of the time unfairly, yes. But when North Korea is doing horrendous things, isn't it an opportunity during these talks to call them out on it and to say, well, this needs to change if you want to be admitted into our circle of friendship?
Yeah, the Warmbier case that Kim Jong-un said he did not know, wasn't aware of, I believe that, because at that level, these specific concrete things, in fact, North Korea never expected Warmbier to die. They are saying some other stories, but I don't think Kim Jong-un is going to be included in the circulation of information regarding that. So we have to realize North Korea is a political system, imperfect political system. North Korean control system is entirely different from other dictatorships in that the dictator has all kinds of authorities and power, but Kim Jong-un is not like that.
Bruce, was it a mistake not to push on human rights?
We have to include human rights in the dialogue for several reasons. One, it's the right thing to do, but also, obviously, North Korea is interested in reducing U.S. sanctions. Well, there are legal requirements that North Korea must do according to the North Korea Sanctions and Policy Enhancement Act before the U.S. president is allowed even to suspend sanctions for 1 year. Some of those requirements are related to human rights, so there are legal requirements. Also, I think in the pillar of improving relations, we may be able to have an exchange of liaison offices, but we can't go to full diplomatic recognition and embassies as long as North Korea is conducting, as the UN Commission of Inquiry report concluded, crimes against humanity unseen since Nazi Germany. So if North Korea wants to reach full diplomatic relations, they're going to have to take steps to improve their human rights.
Very finally, Sung-Young Lee, when Kim and Trump are up there on stage, whether in Vietnam or in Singapore, it's seen as Kim and the world. In the context of this, it's Kim meeting with the world and engaging with the world. There are all sorts of actors with buy-in here, the Chinese, the South Koreans, the Japanese, the IAEA, and so on and so forth. Is it, I guess, wrong for Trump to be the representative of everybody else when he's having these meetings with Kim?
Well, he's the U.S. president, the president of the most powerful nation on earth, but it's Kim who's stealing the show. Trump has been playing really a supporting actor role to the main actor, which is, of course, the formerly weird, cruel-looking dictator now whose smiles flashing and affable and reasonable and reform-minded. You know, on this notion of peace treaty, I've always been curious. Why would North Korea, a nation that has flagrantly violated both the letter and spirit of every single international agreement that it has signed, why would it so obsess over another paper agreement? Well, maybe that's a question best left for philosophers to ponder on. But, you know, to the casual secular observer, a possibility strikes me. Perhaps it's because in doing a peace deal, an agreement or treaty, there are strategic advantages to be gained, as there were definitely for North Vietnam in the wake of the January 1973 peace treaty, the Paris Peace Accords with the U.S., which compelled the U.S. to withdraw troops, abandon the South, and allow the North to march in and complete the communist revolution.
Understood.
Maybe that's something that's on Kim Jong-un's mind as well.
Something to mull over. Listen, gentlemen, I have to move on, but it's been a pleasure. Very finally, referring to his private conversations with Kim, Trump said, boy, if you could have heard that dialogue, what you would pay for that dialogue. I'd be fascinated to hear or read the transcripts. Thanks so much, Han Park, Sung-Young Lee, and Bruce Klingner. Always a pleasure having you on the Newsmakers. This week, we took a look at the British MPs who defected from the Labour Party to form a new centrist political force called the Independent Group. The lawmakers who started it say they lost confidence in their leader, Jeremy Corbyn, and his handling of alleged anti-Semitism within the party. We had Labour MP Chris Williamson on the show to defend Corbyn. Now, the very next day, he was suspended from the party after a video surfaced of him telling activists that Labour had been too apologetic over anti-Semitism. Here's what he said on our show.
These are 11 individuals who've never supported Jeremy Corbyn, never supported the new direction that the Labour Party's taken now since Jeremy became the leader. I think the truth is that Labour Party members, indeed the country as a whole, had become very tired and dissatisfied with the policy agenda that successive governments had pursued, both new Labour and indeed Conservative governments. Really what we've been living with is a sort of market economics, sort of neoliberal economic agenda ever since Margaret Thatcher was elected in 1979. And I think there was a real appetite for a change of direction. And the truth is now that the Labour Party's policy programme is supported by between 70 and 80% of the general public, whether that be public ownership or scrapping tuition fees, building council houses, having an economy that works in the interests of everybody, secure employment for people again, and making sure that our public services are fit for purpose. Regrettably, over the last 4 decades, we've seen public services used as a cash cow to generate profits for the private sector. And I just think people have had enough. And that's why it was such a breath of fresh air when Jeremy Corbyn was elected. And sadly, some MPs, these 8 who've left the Labour Party, were just never really comfortable with that different direction, and they've made an honourable decision, I guess, if they don't feel that they are in step with the Labour Party members or indeed the country as a whole. They've made the right decision in moving on.
Chris, the fact that Corbyn has called for a second referendum for the first time shows that these guys breaking away has had an impact. They've dragged Corbyn to make a decision. That's a fact, isn't it?
No, it's not really. And I think it's important as well not to reduce politics to personalities. It's not about Jeremy Corbyn. It's about the policy direction that the Labour Party has taken now. And as I've already said, they are very, very popular policies and say overwhelmingly backed by the British people. As far as the decision that was taken,
I think that's Jeremy Corbyn calling you right now. Carry on.
No, say some constituents or something. But no. As far as the decision to consider a people's vote now, I mean, this was always on the cards. And indeed, when it was being rumoured that some people were considering leaving the party, I mean, people like the Shadow Chancellor John McDonnell and others were saying on the media, why are they leaving? I mean, what's the issue? I mean, we're very clear in terms of the policy that we adopted at the Labour Party conference. We said that we wanted to try to ensure that any deal met with the 6 tests that the Labour Party set based upon the commitments that were given by the Conservative government. And if that wasn't successful, to then try to secure a general election. And the very last step was to look at possibly calling for another referendum. So this was something that was agreed by the party last September at our conference. So, to suggest that somehow these 8 individuals who decided to move on because they're out of step with the British people and the Labour Party members have somehow forced Jeremy Corbyn's hand is absurd.
That's all for this edition of The Newsmakers with me, Imran Khan. Check out more of our stories on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter. Remember to like, follow and subscribe. Until next time, thank you for watching. Bye-bye.